So on Daf Lamed Heyamid Beis, Lamed Heyamid Beis 35b. I hope you have. No, then check the right here on the other side of this wall. We'll wait for you. Yeah, is this going to be just a trial and error? We'll see an experiment if we can plow through the first Mishnah and the fourth parak. So this parak is called Acholes Yevamot. More often than not, the Masechet gives an introduction to the parak, but here I don't see an introduction. You have it? So you'll open up to Lamed Heyamid Beis. That's a parak called Acholes Yevamot. Fourth parak. It's a relatively short parak. Oh no, it's not necessarily.
So not doing that.
We'll leave mitzvahs chalitza for the back burners. I'm afraid of that parak. You know how sometimes you have like bad associations, but you don't even remember why. So this parak is about chalitza, but it's more a focus on what we call chalutza, not the chalitza itself, which is mitzvah's chalitza, the parak that we started, but rather the status of the chalutza. Now, chalitza, to some extent, is like marriage. As we could create a kind of an analogy or an equation. That get is to an Eishes Ish what chalitza is to Yevamot Ashur, to Zikas Yibud. Now, in the case of a grusha, when we study the laws of arayos, we find that a person is enjoined, he's forbidden from marrying the relatives of his former wife, what we call it in modern language, they call it the ex, right? The grusha. If we apply the equation that chalitza is like gerushin, then after chalitza, he would not be allowed to marry the krovim, or krovos, of his chalutza. So that's going to be one long-term repercussion of chalitza. Second is that she can't marry a Kohen because her status is now equal to that of a grusha. So chalutza can grusha, and she's asura l'Kohen. The Torah says, "Isha grusha me'isha lo yikachu." And the extra vav in the word ve'isha is used by the Gemara on Daf Chav Daled to derive a ribui for chalutza. That chalutza is asura kigrusha. That's as far as the Kohen is concerned. However, that isur is only derabanan. The Gemara says that this derivation of chalutza to generate an isur to Kohenim, like a grusha, that's only midrabanan. However, the problem is that Rashi, not here but elsewhere, in Masechet Makos and Daf Yud Gimel, indicates that the isur chalutza to a Kohen is minat Torah. Tosfos there in Makos completely smashes Rashi, rejects Rashi, and for sure he says the isur of a grusha to a Kohen is only derabon. he points out here in the note that some made such an effort to defend Rashi, who says that the Isur Chalutza the Kohen is Minat Torah, that Rashi didn't mean it's Minat Torah, but rather the Rabbanan made it even more chomer than Minat Torah. That the Isur Chalutza the Kohen is chomer yoser than the Isur of Grusha to a Kohen. The Rabbanan upgraded the status of the Isur Chalutza to a Kohen to a status that supersedes that of a Grusha. But just pointing out that this Rashi at the end of Makkas is a Pelham, because the Sugya on Daf Chav Daled indicates that the drasha from the extra Vav of Ve'isha is only an asmach. So how could Rashi get away with it and say that Chalutza to a Kohen is an Isur Doras? Okay. Now let's ask another question before we start this pair. As we know, this is the Aleph base. The Parsha of Yevamot only applies to a man who died childless. What if a man dies and he leaves a pregnant wife behind? At the moment of his death, he has no children. Hacholetz liyavimto v'nimtzeis meuberes. So the Yevamah shows up, maybe she's wearing a garment or whatever, and the choletz doesn't know that she's meuberes. So what is the repercussion of such chalitza? Is it meaningless? And this is going to have many repercussions because a chalutza, as we said before, is not allowed to marry a Kohen. And not only that, a man is not allowed to marry the relatives of a chalutza, her relatives. But here in this case, the entire enterprise of chalitza was built on, predicated on a mistaken understanding that she is thinking she's not pregnant when in fact she is pregnant. The old, she carries the term, and she gives birth. And not only that, Bisman, we're talking about a case where the Vlad is a Vlad Shel Kayama, meaning he's 30 days old, Yotzmachal Meifel. We believe he's a viable, we have every reason to assume that he's a viable being. So that she carried a full pregnancy, gave birth, and now Lamafreya, as it turns out, this Yevamah, as far as the late husband is concerned, we're talking about, from the perspective of Yavam and Ashes, Achshesh Lobanim. There was no Zikas Yivam. The Chalitza, therefore, should be meaningless Chalitza. And that's exactly what the Mishnah establishes. Who muter b'krovo seha, vehi muteres b'krovo. And furthermore, lo psala min hakahuna. It's not like a normal chalitza, valid chalitza, which is upgraded to the status of a get, of gerushin, which makes her into asura l'kohen. No, she's not asura l'kohen. The chalitza wasn't worth a dime. However, what happens if she's pregnant but never? She was not able to give birth to a viable being. You might call it a stillborn. It's a very tragic situation. If that be the case, then the chalitza was a chalitza. Who asur b'krovo? He asur b'krovo v'psula min hakahuna.
We have kids Shabbatos.
I would assume she's allowed to marry a Kohen. I'm assuming. I don't know. Do you know something I don't know?
No, that's the Christian problem.
No.
Sure. Just use that.
You said Pshita my Kamash. What was the Hava?
If Shabbatos is not Christian, he also, but Shabbatos is not the Christian.
I would say, again, I'm jumping the gun here, that the ratio of the Mishnah we just finished learning is only an introduction to the Sefer. Namely, that there are situations in which she's pregnant, and yet the chalitza is valid. And that's a case where she gives birth to a nefesh. Ein avlad shel kayom. Okay.
You need that, this case, you need to have a case where she had a navel and would you still need chalitza? I say a case where.
No, in other words,
she's
even though at the moment of the chalitza, it looked like the chalitza was meaningless, but lemafreya, we see that it was a valid chalitza because she never carried the term. She didn't give birth to a vlad shel kayom. So her late husband died without any children.
That would apply now as if she had a baby and was stillborn, that she still needs chalitza.
Correct. And in this case, the chalitza was implemented when she was pregnant, but the Gloy Milsam Afreya, that pregnancy would not culminate with a Vlad Shel Kayom. Now, in general, when a man, Rahman al-Islam, dies childless and leaves a wife and a brother, when does the Yibum take place? Immediately?
No, like 3 months.
Okay, great. That's exactly what we're going to learn now in this Mishnah. Now, you may have learned this Mishnah recently, or...
No. She was pregnant for 3 months before.
So this is called Achi Yamalu Shlosha Chadosh. We have to wait 3 months because maybe she's pregnant. She might not know it, which means that her late husband has Zera, which means that she doesn't fall for Yibum, which means that her relationship to the surviving brother is that of an Eishazah. We can't play games. We're dealing with fire. So we have to take every precaution to guarantee that there was a full-fledged Nefilah L'Yibum, which means that he left no Zera, and therefore we have to wait 3 Chadoshim. Once 3 Chadoshim pass, then we say Nikar Havlad. And if there's no Vlad, then we assume there won't be a Vlad. She's not pregnant. Now, just as a footnote here, I'm wondering what happens in a case where the late husband was, incarcerated in jail. I'll just give you that example. You can think of many, many different examples. He was in Medina Sayyam, he was incapable, he was laid up in a hospital room. You could find various scenarios. Would the halacha still require that we wait 3 months when we know for sure she's not pregnant? I don't know. I have a feeling that there's a low plug kind of situation. They're going to make an absolute rule, but I don't have any proof. Akone says Yevimto, he went ahead and he married this woman, meaning he married his late brother's wife without waiting 3 months. Excuse me. Now, after he marries her, he thinks he's doing a great thing. He's being Mekayim the mitzvah of Yibum. Nimtzeis Mu'beret. The old. Now, Nimtzeis Mu'beres means that she's pregnant from the late husband that died, which means she has a Vlad Shel Kayom, assuming, we'll get to. And therefore, she didn't fall for Yibum. Meanwhile, she had a relationship with this brother. That's an Erev of Eishazah. Is there for Yotz. If it's a Vlad Shel Kayoma, then we're going to force him to divorce. And furthermore, Chayovim, he and she are obligated to Karmon Chat. It's a little bit interesting here that we let him get away with the Karmon Chat. I mean, he shouldn't have done this. But okay, I guess the Karmon Chat is for an Easter Erev Veishus Av. So, you can penalize him for violating a Rabbanon and going in, but we're penalizing him for a real Avera of Bias Erev. He has to bring a Karmon Chat.
Once you're married. Mary should also bring a photo or something, you know?
Who?
They still know the road, whatever we did.
I mean, the one who's, I don't know, I'm not sure. It says he was Miyabim, I don't know. Maybe they were Eidim, I don't, Yibam doesn't require a Rav. You don't need a rabbi to officiate at a Yibam.
You just need what Eidim, that's it.
I'm not even sure if you need Eidim, but okay, let's say you need Eidim. But you might need a Yichud. I don't know if you need Eidim Bia. But I'm thinking out loud here. Does he deserve to get away with a chat? Maybe there's a Havamina here that in this case he's like Karvel amazing. He doesn't even deserve the kapar of a chat. The mission is being mechadish a gevaldige chiddush. This man had no right, even according to his understanding, he had no right to have a relationship with this woman. Because the Rabbanan prohibited it until 3 months go by. He didn't wait for 3 months. So I don't know if he's a shogeg or amazing, but
according to you, it's amazing. I say who inadvertently transgressed the first very prohibition. Inadvertently.
Meaning so what? It's a shogeg.
They were shogeg. So
right, and that's why he's chayv because it's the shogeg. But I'm just saying, in the Havamina, before this Maskara, he's explaining on Mishnah. But if not for the Mishnah, we could have said he's already like amazing, Correct, and he wouldn't be chayv achat. We wouldn't allow him to have the benefit of a Now, what does that mean, Yikayim? I mean, he fulfilled the mitzvah of Yibum. Again, he didn't do it the kosher way, but he definitely fulfilled the mitzvah of Yibum. It's a little bit strange that it says Yikayim. Yikayim means that he doesn't have to divorce her.
Well, that's because because we say that
he says in the footnote that Yikayim means chayav l'tayim.
Yikayim means that Yibum is okay.
I understand that Yibum is okay, but are we saying Yikayim means that we don't force him to divorce her? I mean, he was Mekayim mitzvah Yibum, so you don't have to tell me Yikayim. Yikayim means we allow the marriage to continue. That's the literal translation of the word Yikayim.
It's the Bible. Therefore, we say that the first husband have any children. Therefore,
no, I understand, but don't tell me that we're not going to force the hand of the brother, the Yavam, the living brother, to divorce his wife. Don't tell me that. I mean, it's Yibum. He was Mekayim mitzvah Yibum. It would be very odd for the Mishnah to use the terminology in a case of someone who was Mekayim mitzvah Yibum that we're not going to force him to divorce his wife. He was Mekayim mitzvah Yibum. But I'm just pointing out here in a footnote, he says that the word Yikayim here doesn't mean that we're going to allow him to continue in that marriage relationship, but rather the word Yikayim means chayav l'tayim. But he points out that the Gemara is going to actually vacillate back. What does it mean, Yikayim? So I guess we'll wait for the Gemara, whether Yikayim means we'll let him decide whether he wants to continue this marriage, or Yikayim means he's obligated to continue. I would like to say he's obligated to continue that. Okay. Now we go on to the next case. Safek ben Tisha L'Rishon, Safek ben Shiva Liach. So now we don't know who is the father of this Vlad. Let's say it's a Vlad Shel Kayom, right? And the brother was Miyavev, he implemented Yivu, let's say 2 months after his brother died, and now she becomes pregnant. Now she gives birth. I mean, a lot of genes here in common. So we don't know who the father is. It's one of two brothers. Now, if the Vlad is a ben is a ben. Get this right. A ben tisha l'rishon. No, did I get that right? Ben tisha l'rishon.
Seven to the second one.
Again, I don't see it here in my Gemara, but I think it's logical. Let's say we'll use that term ben tisha l'rishon. So that means that he's living with an Erefa. He's living with Ashes Ah. But it's only a suffix, it's Yotzi. So we're going to force a divorce here. If he's a ben tisha l'rishon, then she's an Ashes Ah. Shalom Maka Mitzvah, which is an Isser Karet. That's the divorce. Avlad Kosh. What does that mean? Avlad kosher, meaning if he's a ben tishel or rishon. If he's a ben tishel or rishon, then he's not a mamzer. But let's say he's a ben shiva l'sheni, which means that he violated the iser. No, but if it's ben shiva l'sheni, then he was kind of mitzvah. So we must no matter how you slice the cake, the vlad is a kosher. B'chayovim ve'osham. Yavam and the Yavam have to bring a korban osham tolui. Yesh lochu shema ben shenolenu b'no shel ach harishon. V'hi nesra ola Yisrach eshes ach. All Isa shechayover al znon korse shegasachat chayover al iya yidia shelo osham. Fine. So this is an osham tolui. Which is basically a chat sabala saf. That's called an osham tolui. Is it the same as the classic case? Let's see. The classic case of osham tolui is where we don't know if this is Shuman or if this is Chalev. So here also we don't know whether or not she is an Ashes Ad. That generates a few Osham Tolu. He says here in the name of the Tosas Yontav, V'ein omrim shenelech achar rov, v'rov noshim l'tisha chadoshim yoldos, v'yischayv korban chatas. The Valig Kashkin of the Tosas Yontav. He said, why did he get away with a chat? They told Osham Tolu, you speak Chayv Chatas based on rov. Because the majority of women give birth after 9 months. And the Yibum took place only 7 months before the labor. So we have statistical probability to insist and be machriya that this is the child of the first husband, which means that he's chayv chatos. Let's say you have a suffix, something shuman, it's a 50-50 suffix. If let's say you had a rov to tell you that it's a piece of chaylev, then you'd have to bring a korban chatos, feeding. So why should this be different? I mean, it's a gorgeous question, but I think it's an answer to this question. This is young, based on road. Say it again?
Not regular home.
No, just 1 second. I think there's some mistake here. I'm trying to figure it out. It sounds like a Gewaldige Kash on the surface of it. But wait a second. What happened? He married her.
One saying stop it. 7 months, stop it 9.
And
We
most
have Roy.
women give birth after 9. That's his cash. No, it's a Gewaldige Kash, but I just intuitively I sense there's something.
Going to say right in the case of it.
Give me a minute. See, where is the suffix chal? Let me try to explain my question. When we talk in general about whether she gave birth after 9 months or after 7 months, the suffix is chal on the vlad. We want to determine whether this vlad is a previ or not a previ. That's not what we're discussing here. Here, we're not asking about the vlad. We're asking who the father of this child. And the suffix is chal on the father. That's a 50-50 suffix. There is no rove. The rove answers the question of the suffix. So if you have a suffix on this vlad, you want to know if it's a vlad ben tesha, vlad ben sheva, whether it's viable or not, and all the dinim of, let's say, for example, pidyon ben, and with the Kohen is a million different questions that could arise. We're going to assume that she carried to a full term. And this vlad is a vlad ben tesha. But now I have a different situation. There are 2 possible fathers. Is it the late brother or is it the surviving brother? I don't know which one of the 2 is the father of this vlad.
But the blood being destroyed is 9 months. That shows that the father was the original father.
No, but I'm just saying that if you're dealing with issues of the vlad, how long was she pregnant before she gave birth? That's one thing. Then you could apply rove because that's the issue you're dealing with. That's not the issue we're dealing with here. You have another husband, so to speak, another father in the equation. She's married to 2 different men. So if she's married to 2 different men, we don't know what the status of the vlad is. Like, for example, we learned together all the sugyas about a Kohen, right? We had a suffix, is he a Kohen, is he not a Kohen? We're not going to use rove in all those cases. We never used rove.
No.
We always said, oh, he wants to be part of the mishmar, he wants to get a chelik of the carbon, he wants to collect truma, and bechar, and all this stuff. So we said it's suffix. If he grabbed it, might be different, who's mufsuk and who's not mufsuk. Why don't we use rove? Because there we're dealing with 2 possible fathers. And whenever we're dealing with 2 possible fathers, it becomes a suffix of mechzal mechzal. It's 50-50. That's what I would say. I don't know. All right, we have 5 more minutes. We'll finish up. Itmar. Hacholetz lemu beres. Right, so we had the case of hacholetz lemu beres. And we don't know whether the vlad is vlad kayoma. If the vlad is the vlad kayoma, she didn't need chalitza. Vehi pila. Okay, hipila means that she doesn't give birth to a vlad, which means her late husband had died without any children. So now we know that the chalitza was a valid chalitza. Yochanan Amar Ena Tzricha Chalitza mina achin. I mean, that seems obvious. I mean, she already had chalitza, right? What was the case? Hacholitz muberes. What's Reish Lakish? It's Omar. Smicha chalitza. Ach, Rabbi Yochanan Ma'ayin Chalitza Chalitza's Muberes Shmei Chalitza. I'm just skipping for a moment. Reish Lakish Omer Tzricha Chalitza V'Na'achem Chalitzas Muberes Lo Shmei Chalitza. What does that mean? I skipped a few words. I don't know if that's going to help me, but anyway. Ubias Muberes Shmei Bia. And Reish Lakish says Bias Muberes Lo Shmei. So let's go back to Rabbi Yochanan. Chalitza's Muberes Shmei Chalitza. There's no need for a repeat performance. She already got her Chalitza. Ubias Muberes Shmei Bia. So what's he saying, that they're fully married as husband and wife? And what is Reish Lakish saying? That bias muberes lo shmei bia. No, I understand she needs another chalitza for whatever reason, according to Reish Lakish. But what's this bias muberes lo shmei bia? One second. What's bias muberes lo shmei bia? Why not?
I don't know.
I guess when we figure out why the chalitza is not. Do you have any footnote on bias muberes lo shmei bia? No. Well, let me just say this. What I'm about to say is probably wrong, but just the saber ta'ozen. It could be the machlokas Reish Lakish Rabbi Yochanan is a universal machlokas about lemafreya or not lemafreya. Meaning, whenever you have a suffix and then you clarify the suffix subsequently, do we apply the principle of lemafreya? Rabbi Yochanan says lemafreya. We now know that she fell for evil and the chalitza was a valid chalitza. Reish Lakish says no. It was a chalitza suffix, which is not a valid chalitza. We have a clarification. It doesn't matter. We're not going to say lemafreya. That's going to make the chalitza into a chalitza because the chalitza in its moment was not a valid chalitza. He gave chalitza to muberes. Chalitza's muberes is not a valid chalitza. It's not a muberes that would undermine the zikas yibum and therefore would make the chalitza into a joke, into a non-entity. No, it doesn't matter. That's only about mikan lahava. From now on, we realize that she's the Yevamot and she fell for Yibum and she didn't have a Vlad Shel Kayum. But at the time of the Chalitza, she was Muberes. She had every right to a Chazaka to assume that she is going to carry to term. And therefore the Chalitza is completely invalid. All right, so we'll see Belina tomorrow if we can make any progress. Say it again.
That's why she needs another chalitza.
According to Reish Lakish, the chalitza itself, in its time, was an invalid chalitza. You can't give chalitza to muberes. We have to assume that she'll carry to term. We were fooled. We thought she had a vlada shel kayom in her belly, and she turns out that she doesn't have one. But we're not going to say lemafreya that we can be machshir the chalitza. I doubt if that's what's going on here. I'm just saying, saber those.
Submission itself doesn't bring anything at all. This is a chalitza, and if the kayam or not kayam, that's where it goes. This is how that's.
Right. So we'll see if Reish Lakish, if Rabbi Yochanan is going to object to Reish Lakish based on the, on the Mishnah and the Daik from the Mishnah. I mean that remains to be seen. But I just wanted to know what was the svara of Reish. You might be medayik from the Mishnah that the Mishnah seems to indicate that the chalitza was a valid chalitza. If it turns out that she's carrying a vlad she'ena kol kayom. But what was the compelling logic of Reish Lakish? Reish Lakish says that chalitza of a muberes is not a chalitza. We're not going to recognize that chalitza. Later on we find out that this muberes was just a bloated, thing, but it's not irrelevant. You're not going to apply lemafreya. But in any event, I guess we'll see tomorrow how the Gemara is going to analyze this number. But I think as an experiment, this was pretty successful. I mean, I think we're oriented here,
Okay.
So we'll see if we can continue this tomorrow. Okay, then. So I wish you a great day.